Good evening, everyone. With the posted time having arrived and a quorum of members present, I'll call the Public Health and Safety Committee for Monday, September 18th, 2023 to order. The first item of business on our agenda is to approve the minutes from our last meeting on 8/21 of 23, copies of which are in the packets. Did anyone note any adjustments that they needed for the minutes? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
Move to approve minutes.
There's a motion from Denny. Is there a second?
A second.
Second from Henke. Additional comment? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? None are opposed. Minutes are approved. Item 2 is to consider approval or denial of various license applications. We do have, let me just switch over to the packet from the, okay. So we had 2 recommended denials. We'll let the record show that Peter Gage has withdrawn his application. He was recommended for denial. Also carried over from the last meeting to allow time to submit proof of rehab was Emmanuel Reyes. Is Emmanuel Reyes in the room with us this evening? Emmanuel Reyes? Let the record show he has not appeared, and to date, the clerk has not received any evidence of rehabilitation from Emmanuel Reyes. Other than that, the seasonal events are all in the packet. I think there was a email with additional information on the events as well as the list that's in the packet. Anyone have any questions on any specific events or anything? If not, I'll accept a motion to accept or deny licenses as recommended by staff.
I'll make the motion to.
Okay. Motion from Larson. Is there a second?
Second the
Second.
list.
Second by Denny. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? None are opposed. Those licenses then are either accepted or denied as indicated. Item 3 is to consider Central Business District obstruction permit applications, one from the Chocolate Shop at 532 South 3rd Avenue and one from Forward Beverage at 303 North 3rd Street. You'll see the applications for those in your packets. We approve Central Business District obstruction permits anytime folks want outdoor tables and chairs or sandwich board signs or any of that type of stuff. Ordinarily, as long as it can be easily moved in the event of an emergency and as long as the sidewalk can function while it's there, we've not ever had a problem with them. Does anyone have any question about these 2? If not, is there a motion to approve both of them?
I guess I had a question.
Okay, go ahead.
It says here kegs under the table for the Forward Beverage one. Are they going to be serving beer out there?
They're a non-alcoholic establishment,
Oh,
so
okay.
I wonder if they're using empty ones though for table bases,
Okay.
but they're serving an array of non-alcoholic beverages and seltzers and things.
Then I'll move to approve both of these variances.
Okay. Is there a second to approve them?
Second the motion.
Second from Denny. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? None are opposed. That motion carries as well. Item 4 is discussion and possible action on creating Section 12.44.055 block parties as a result of the sunset auto repeal of the original ordinance on November 1st, 2023 at 12:01 a.m. And you'll recall at the start of the event season, we came to the committee to discuss, we were asked to discuss the idea of business-sponsored block parties. And so we allowed for that for the summer to see how it would go with the agreement that we would take stock of how it went in the fall, and here we are. I know that we've had a few of them, and from what I've heard, there's not been a problem with any of them, I think. And we have, Tyler Vogt is here. He's the owner of the West Sider Diner and Lounge and Malarkey's and Townie's Grill. Both establishments had expressed an interest in, at some point, a temporary street closure for a block party type event with music and things.
Lisa.
Yes.
Matt is here from
Oh,
101 Pub.
Yep, and Matt Brewer is also here from 101 Pub. And so the ask today is if we've not had issues as a result of block parties, do we want this permit to be a permanent offering? Because that is the option. If it sunsets, we don't have them anymore. But if we decide that they're not a problem and we want to continue to be able to offer that item, we would then make this item permanent. So Tara?
Lisa, I wanted to let you know, when Mary and I were discussing this, we realized there was a little bit of a confusion in some of the language under other block parties, subsection F. It says alcohol may be served or sold only by an establishment holding an alcohol beverage license. The old language said, and only from the licensed premise. And that was confusing as we were trying to work out their proposal. So we just took the extra language out and just left it now so it wouldn't be confusing. Alcohol may only be served by an establishment holding an alcohol beverage license.
Okay, so during the time that the street is closed, they would be able to allow beverage out there? I mean, obviously, we'd ask that they,
It can only be served by them, but it was a little confusing whether or not that meant they had to consume it at the licensed premise or
Right.
they could consume it outside.
Right.
So the intention is to allow people to buy the alcohol from the two establishments and then go outside
into the
and drink
closed
it.
area while it's closed? Right. I think that was their intent as well. They're both nodding. So, committee members, what are your thoughts on this? I think that, I guess if you wanted to hear from either establishment owner, I know that Malarkey's has had some of those events. And in fact, they've had post Wednesday night concert, a little street jam type thing happening on the corner, where they've had that block of Third Street temporarily closed. I don't think that anyone's reported a problem with that. Does anyone have questions for Matt or for Tyler? If not, is there?
I guess.
Go ahead.
So for these special events, do they have to expand their boundaries of their licenses? Is that how we've been handling that? I'm just wondering, I don't want them to get in trouble. And I want.
Not under this scheme, because there are two licensed premises that want to serve alcohol. If they were to each expand their premise to some imaginary line in the middle of the street, then people from one bar couldn't go over the imaginary line, and people from the other bar can't go from the imaginary line. And then if you got a beer from Matt's, you couldn't go into the other tavern with that beer, but you could go back into Matt's with that beer, and it was a mess. So we decided the cleanest, easiest way is not to enlarge the premises, to close the block off, let people buy alcohol, leave it sealed as in the cocktails to go or beer, and then when they get outside, they open it, and they're going to have to kind of drink it and consume it outside.
Just like what they do with the 400 block on Wednesday night, basically.
Exactly.
Sell it, take it out there, consume it
Right.
for their own use, and don't wander off
Keeps
with
it
it.
cleaner, because otherwise it's a mess.
It does. Lou?
So I have a question then too, and this pertains to Matt Brewer's place, because there's a couple of neighboring taverns by you as well. There's Chatterbox and one other, isn't there?
Chatterbox and then Callan Street Pub, but
Yeah.
we're only going to be doing this between Chatterbox and the 101 Pub. So we will not expect this would go up the block at all. It would be contained on
Elm.
Elm between 2nd and 3rd only.
Oh, okay,
That
so,
it would
because
not
I mean,
continue on.
I don't want to see, I want to make sure that you can continue going with what you've been doing. So, I mean, I don't want to say if somebody gets a beer from Chatterbox, all of a sudden walk across the street and end up by your place and then get a ticket because it,
Right.
They
We
didn't
we
buy-
definitely want to have them be able to go between the two bars.
Yeah.
And we've even considered just closing it down to our two bars, so we don't have any concern. But with signage and other barricades and other things, and people there helping support, we think we're going to have plenty of a safe venue to make sure that people don't wander off with those type of things, and they keep it in that defined area.
The other notion, well, last fall, I think the two of you were trying to work together on Halloween party.
Correct.
And it was just so close that the notion of this came up, but we weren't able to work out the logistics quickly enough to facilitate the Halloween party. So something like this would set that in motion as well, so.
Correct.
And just so everyone knows for sure, this action tonight is just to approve the continuation of the ordinance as it's slightly amended from the original one, but there won't be any yellow because it's a new ordinance.
It is.
So the approval of the block party part will still have to go to engineering. they issue the block.
They issue the permit, yes.
Right,
Yes,
just,
right.
just so everyone's clear.
Right, so when the application's received, they review the application for the logistics of where the closure points are and for how long, and then if it meets specs, then they issue the permit, just like they do for residential block party.
Right.
And just
So
for context, we're-
technically,
just for
they'll be
context.
getting their permit under the ordinance that's currently in effect, but this is to make sure that we have an ordinance in effect for the day after the party, which is November 1st.
Ah, okay.
The party is actually November 4th.
Oh,
Ah.
well,
This year?
there you, oh, then you are going
And
to be
just for
under this
context, we were
one.
approved to close the streets last year.
Okay.
Just without the change of the ordinance, we weren't allowed to have alcohol in the street.
Right.
So we didn't go with closing the street, even though we were approved already.
Got it.
Right, so this year we'll make a better Halloween party. I think that's what you
Correct.
guys were trying to do in the first place.
Yes.
Just to be able to make it easy for everyone to understand and know that when they were in the right place and when they weren't in the wrong place, so.
Yes, ma'am.
Helpful. Any additional questions? Doug?
I've got a question for Tara. So in your description of that item, item 2, it also says open containers of alcohol may not be taken from the licensed premise, but if I understood you right, one could go from outside inside and then not back outside?
So
or-
open containers cannot be taken from the premises. So if you order a drink and they give you a drink in a cup, you can't leave with that. What they have to give you is a sealed container so that they can
Yes.
take the sealed container out into the street and then open it and consume it in the street. So that's part one. Once that container is open, I guess they really shouldn't go back in to the premises because they haven't expanded the premises. Right, Mary? That's how we envision that.
So that's a little confusing.
Yeah.
Then what if you're selling it on the
So-
street?
Well,
Well,
the
you
400
shouldn't be selling it on the street.
Right,
the
the
side.
400 block was the model for this, and so what happens is when you buy a drink to take to the 400 block, you're given, say you're going to buy a Bloody Mary, so all of the components for the Bloody Mary, other than the vodka, are in the cup, and you get a sealed travel-size bottle of alcohol that you add to it when you get to the 400 block, and you mix it yourself for your own consumption. And then you don't leave the party area or the 400 block area with it. You either dump it out or finish it, but you don't walk around the sidewalk with it. This is kind of the same premise when we met about this. Same thing with bottled beer. They buy the bottle with the cap on, take it out and open it themselves. So because the state law says that they, right, can't leave open containers out the front door into the public right-of-way.
Beer,
Right, under cocktails to go, you have to leave with either a tamper evident free seal, so you could put it in like a juicy, like a juice bag with a straw and seal it, but they
They've got
can't
tamper
pop.
resistant,
Right, yeah.
things you can
Right,
put over top
exactly.
of an actual,
Right,
a solo
exactly.
cup
Yes.
with a lid. You give
Right.
them a straw as they walk
So
out
that
the door.
it's
they can
evident
put the straw.
that the
Correct.
seal is broken
Absolutely.
when it's broken.
Right.
I had sent Rick Ulig an email about this, and what he told me, I was surprised, I didn't know this, he said that beer can be taken out, like they could get a cup of beer
He
and
did
take
say
it out.
that.
But liquor, he said liquor cannot be taken out of a bar.
Which is where the
But we
cocktail to go
found
came
the
from.
cocktail to go is like the only way that could be done. If it's tamper resistant, you can't mix the drink in a cup and let them take it out
And I
because
think
he
that's
said
where
liquor
the
can't go
concern
out.
comes in, right? Is we don't want to confuse our patrons. Number one, I love the progression of where this conversation is going. Number two, how do we go and combine those two conversations, right? How do we take the beer conversation? You consume enough beer, you consume enough alcohol, you could end up in the same place. So we have to have a safe environment, safe venue with good decision making for people. But right when we make it very confusing, it's going to be confusing for our patrons. It'll be confusing for the bar owner, and then we leave people at risk. So, my request, obviously, I don't want to stop or hinder the conversation that's going thus far. So wherever we can take this today, absolutely love and support. And is there a way to take it to a place where in this space, because it's this identified space only, you have the ability to leave the bar with any type of purchased alcohol and consume that in that environment, whether they can bring it back in or bring it into the other bar is up for discussion. But how do we try to simplify it for all the people participating so it doesn't become something that's very complicated that leaves people at risk. And that's really,
Right.
we've already got a safe environment. We proved it last year. We
Right.
didn't close the street. We still had a great time. People had a lot of fun. We kept it safe. We managed our doors, and we've shown we can do this. So how do we now manage the street and have the same opportunity to do this?
I think the difference is when the public right-of-way is involved, because that's where the law gets drawn, where it's different, where if you were having a parking lot party, like B&R has St. Arnulf's Festival every year, they use their parking lot, they serve out in the parking lot, they fence off that area. It's still a private property area, but when you progress onto the sidewalk and the street, the state has different rules for public right-of-way, and so, which is where we were into the business of having to give this waiver for exhibitor to make that work, so that they could amble around, that's right. Well, and so with that new block party rule, I think that we need to be consistent so that the block party rules are easy to obey. So if that means closed container out to the street area, I don't know that there's a whole lot, there's no way that you're going to control if somebody has that cup and they walk back inside. They're just,
Well,
you're not going to be able to do that.
On the 400 block, we come out with draft beers in a plastic cup. I think.
Not, no, no.
Ask Tyler, he'll tell you
You have
what
to buy a
do.
bucket
But
from
probably a
them.
good example of if we can't answer it today, are we going to be able to answer it on that day? So that's, I don't mean to interrupt.
Can Tyler say what he does for the benefit of the committee?
No, I'm not citing any specific, I'm just asking.
So I think where the confusion, if I'm understanding where everybody's at here, is simply that when you're in the right of way, be in the sidewalk, this is where you can't have an open intoxicant, correct?
That's right, and the street.
So like in my situation, after we did dining on the street, we expanded our premise to the curb. So maybe all we need to do is expand his premise to the curb only during these events, right? And then.
No, because he wants to do it with another tavern.
But if they're,
And so-
if each one of their premises stop at the curb, and then the street is what's now under this block party, they have a temporary
Well,
expansion.
I don't think he asked for that. I think he wants people to be able to drink in the street.
Right, I think we're now talking about how we travel across the sidewalk, the right of way.
Well, the right of way
during
is
the
also
party.
the road, though. So anything owned by the public. So
Okay.
the boulevard, the sidewalk, and the street is all the same thing.
Like my sidewalk cafe license,
Mm-hmm.
it grants me an expansion onto the sidewalk, but not
Right.
into the street.
Correct. But then during the pandemic, we had done temporary premise amendments to allow all of you to expand into the street to serve in
But
the road when you
only
had those
during those
events.
Wednesday events.
Correct, yes.
I'm just, I
Yes.
guess if we could do that for Wednesday nights, maybe we could figure out a way to do it with the block parties, so that the rules are
We
consistent for
kind of
everyone.
liked it this way.
Okay,
for
well, I'm
this
just making a
Well, I'm
suggestion.
just saying
Seems
for
easier.
this event,
Okay.
if he wanted to have something different, a different kind of event. I mean, the facts matter, so, maybe it would get structured a different way. But trying to have two different taverns with two premises that meet up into the middle of the street, how are you gonna tell the blue cup guy he
Right.
can't go over there and the red cup guy he can't go over there?
I get what you're saying. I just, during the pandemic, we were allowing the bars without food to get sidewalk
Mm-hmm.
cafe licenses if they wanted to provide table service. I don't think anyone took you up on that, but we were able to do it.
Right.
And what you're saying is basically these two lines are going to meet at a point and neither
Yep.
thing can
They'd
go.
be confusing, so
Yeah.
we're not
So the
having a
block
line.
party permit erases the line, basically, and allows everybody to be in that area while the street is closed, and that eliminates the confusion, so the whole thing should be easier to use. During the pandemic, we were allowed to give all kinds of
Sure.
unique things to get people to be able to be spaced apart outside in the fresh air. But the one thing we don't want to do is create something that causes people to run afoul of their license law, so.
I found the email from Rick Ulig when I specifically asked him about this. And what he says is sales of open container glasses of liquor are limited to on-premise consumption only. A tavern cannot allow a patron to leave with an open container of liquor drinks. Fermented malt beverages are not limited in this way. The only limits on walking out of a tavern with a beer are local restrictions on consumption on the street, which is what we have. So if a municipality has no open container restrictions on the street or would temporarily eliminate open container ordinances for a certain time or area, then any class license could sell and allow patrons to walk out on the street with beer products. But he says, once again, not liquor. But then we thought if you do the closed container, because they did add that, cocktails to go, that is how you could do if someone wanted a drink. But
That's the
beer they
workaround
could
then.
take out in the cup.
Cocktails to go is the workaround. So that's the whole point of having it sealed, which it seems to me like it's easier to have it be sealed for everybody. Once it's open and they're consuming it, it's open and they're consuming it. But I think at the point of purchase, having them all sealed would make sense, because then you're not different with beer and different with mixed drinks at the event, right? I mean, is that
I
what's the?
agree. We didn't make it a requirement or anything. We just want everybody to be the same. Get your drink, go outside, open your drink, knock yourself out.
And we want it to be simple and easy and safe.
That's
right?
the whole point.
That's the idea, because I don't want our patrons to worry if I walk out with this drink, I'm going to get arrested or get a ticket. If
Right.
I walk out with this
And
drink,
what do
I'm
you
just
do
fine.
about the guy who's got, I'm getting a beer for my friend and 2 drinks and
For
a
my wife
glass
and
of
my
wine
friend.
for
Right.
my friends and.
Yeah, even though everybody's ID'd, just calling that out.
Right,
And
right, yes.
But if you're walking out with 2 different drinks, now you've got 2 different
Yeah.
expectations and you're the same person.
That's right.
And we're in a very closed, defined space and
Yep.
environment. And not to drag this on or make this more complicated, but I'm going to just ask questions just for my own knowledge. Would it be wrong to think that there's the ability to close that street, rent it to a private entity to say we're going to have a party and partner with these 2 bars? So let's say at another
Well,
LLC.
the city can't sponsor the event in
No,
any
no,
way.
no, no.
So
Let's say at another LLC that was willing to get a ask for a day liquor license, like a fair or something of that nature, and held that.
You
No.
can't just like spring that on everybody.
Ju-
Well-
just asking, just for,
Very fact specific.
as I was saying, for my own
I'm trying
knowledge.
to say, well, okay, does this entity have a liquor license? What's its premise? Is it
Correct.
going to be selling liquor? Doesn't
Well,
have a premise?
just for my own
They're not
knowledge.
going to premise license a
Yeah.
person without a brick and mortar in the
Well,
middle of the street.
And the
Completely
thing
understand.
is that when you talk about event permits, that gets into the realm of picnic licenses, and then you have to be a bona fide club, and there's all kinds of different rules for that, which then really makes this worse. And I think we will talk ourselves right out of a permit that people can use if we try to massage it on the floor and make it more complicated than it needs to be. So,
Correct.
I mean, we recognize that we've had no problems with the block parties that we've had to date, and we recognize that cocktails to go enables us to allow you all to serve what you need to serve in that space during the event. So, I think that, I will say 10 years ago, all of that would have been off limits and there'd have been no possible way. So, I mean, we as a city have evolved, the state laws have evolved, and that helps everybody, do better. And so I think that to have an event that is simple for people to understand and simple to operate, the way we have it drafted seems to make the most sense. That way you get the permit. When the street is closed, the permit area is the area where the alcohol can be consumed. It doesn't matter which establishment they came out of. They're in the area where they belong. They're not wandering outside in the other neighborhood.
Correct.
I think we're fine. And, I think the events that we've already had on 3rd Street, the ones that we've talked about having on Quah, it's easy to define the boundaries there. And, the point of purchase in all of these situations is licensed. So, I think that just, yeah. Go ahead, Caitlin.
If I can also add, that's part of the reason why, even though the commercial block party permit only needs to be submitted 2 days before your event, our clerk's office really appreciates more time, especially if you're going to have alcohol. So we can help, walk through these facts and the state statutes and things to help make your event a success. So.
Right. Well, and it makes sense, too, with the engineering department. If somebody's on vacation and can't get to it, a little extra time is always helpful. So, okay. Anybody else have questions or comments on this draft?
I would move to approve the block party creating section as
Yep.
written.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the ordinance as written. We have a second from Larson. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed? Motion carries. So thank you for that. Let's see, that brings us to item 5, discussion and possible action on relocating the District 1 and 2 polling place from Pilgrim Lutheran Church to Lakeview Conference Center located at 1000 Lakeview Drive, door 31. We have 2 of these that are similar. So Caitlin, did you want to address this one? It's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, so Marathon County is, today, they're supposed to be finishing construction on the Lakeview Conference Center, which it has a large facility attached to North Central Healthcare that offers more parking, more handicap accessible parking, as well as a large room. I believe it's probably as large as this, if not larger, that we can easily work with for flow, and it can serve as a backup polling place. If we have an emergency at another site, we can direct people over there. So,
All right. Anybody have questions on that? If not, is there a motion to move the change of the polling site?
I'll make the motion to change.
Okay,
the
we have a
polling
motion from Larson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Hanky. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
site. Aye.
Opposed? None are opposed. That motion carries. Item 6, similar, discussion and possible action on relocating the District 6 polling place from Sylvan Hill to the Good Shepherd Lutheran Church at 930 Edgewood Road.
yeah, I hate to move it from Sylvan Hill because working with the Parks Department, they're a great partner. But the Wisconsin Election Commission, they send out auditors for each election, and we were audited in February, and that polling place scored the worst. And we could kind of work with some of the things that they found, except for the parking lot, like that does not meet ADA standards due to it's not stable, firm, or slip-resistant ground, as well as the ramp is too steep for wheelchairs to get into there. So that's why we're looking at moving that polling site.
Okay. Anybody have questions on that at all? And is there a motion then to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Motion from Larson, is there a second? Second from Denny, further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed, that motion carries also. Item 7 is the operations report from the fire department for August of 2023. Anything that you want to discuss with us on that, Chief Cop?
I think I spoiled it a little bit by bringing up CAS accreditation last month. But that's a done deal now, and we're hoping to have a press release out tomorrow, if not sometime this week. And the stickers have been put on the buildings and on the ambulances, and pretty proud to start displaying that and showing off our accreditation qualifications, as well as probably the big one that you guys read that I'm sure I almost have to bring up, but fire department has a fire in it that's pretty unique. You know, you read that we had that fire on the second floor. It started in the women's locker room at the main building on 606 East Thomas. Rather small fire, a lot of smoke damage, and a lot of cleaning, restoration, and remodeling as far as the bathroom goes. And it was an opportunity to get new beds anyway, so.
It started in a light fixture, right? Did somebody say it was a light fixture?
Light
Yeah.
fixture, and then spread to the wall and then to the vanity sink area.
Okay.
So it, you know, it got big enough to fill the whole second floor with smoke, and
Oh.
of course, we don't have anybody that's working up there during the day. so
During the
it
day,
just
right?
fills
Everybody's
until-
training.
Yep, so.
So, but it can happen anywhere. It can happen anywhere. So, anything on that report that we have questions on? If not, we'll place the report on file. Item 8 is the tavern activities report for the month of August. Does anyone have questions on that? Anything notable on the report that you wanted to discuss with us, Captain Baden?
Oh, there we go. I would just say, so Lieutenant Felder, who'd been compiling this report for nearly a decade now, he is in the twilight of his career. We're grateful for his efforts. I think he did a great job. He is passing the baton, as it were, to Lieutenant Stetzer. So you may see some minor stylistic tweaks in this report in coming months, but largely it will remain the same, and he will follow this established pattern from Lieutenant Felder. I will say we have seen, as you look at this report, a bit of an uptick in activity outside a couple of taverns, namely Lopnose and Cop Shop. There seem to be some large crowds gathering out there that are a little reluctant to want to disperse. I'm pretty confident cooler temperatures will move that along, but I also see an opportunity for us to partner with a couple of our establishments there and build those relationships and see how we can maybe fix that for them. And
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and it all starts with a good dialogue, so, yeah, but all have been establishments that you've been able to deal with before, so that's helpful.
Indeed.
Any other questions on that report?
One thing of note is that we've been trying to get a hold of Campus Pub to no success about the status of their licenses. They have been closed since July 1.
What's happening at Cruise Inn? I know somebody had made mention of summer hours or whatnot, and, mean-
From the activities report, that officers observed the bar was open for business.
okay.
So,
In passing by, I've seen also that the open sign was on more than it's been. So perhaps the contact that was made there reminded them that they need to get open and stay open. I mean, obviously, that's a concern for us, so, okay. Anything else on that report? If not, we'll place that report on file as well. And then item 9 is the community outreach update, so we'll invite our community outreach director up, Tracy Rieger, welcome.
Hi, good evening. So each of you got my report in the packet. This month, or the month of August, excuse me, was approximately 243 unhoused individuals in Wausau, according to the data that I was able to obtain from the shelters, Women's Community Bridge Street Mission, and the jail. I think it's really important. I don't want to read through all of the statistics with you because you can see that, but I think what's really important to point out here is that we do have space in our shelters that is not being used. We had about 80% capacity for the month of August. Catholic Charities was only at or above capacity 7 nights out of that month, and the Salvation Army was not at capacity once. So the fact that we do have individuals still out, choosing to stay outdoors for whatever reason, whether it's mental health issues or whatever, it's important to know that there is shelter space available. Outside of that, I was able to work with 5 individuals this last month and get them successfully housed. 2 of those individuals are what we would consider our chronic population, so those are always the tougher individuals to get housing for, so I'm excited to be able to report that today. And then just an opportunity that is coming up in the next month of October. So I'm part of the Housing Task Force, and of the task force, there's a subcommittee that I'm part of that is addressing extreme weather for the unhoused population, and that can be either in the summer or winter. And so our group came up with a plan, and we think it's really important that it's not lying on one entity to try to fulfill this need to shelter the unhoused when we have extreme weather conditions. So we developed what we're calling a community on-call initiative. And basically what we're trying to do is get groups, churches, organizations that might have space available interested in helping when we have extreme weather conditions. There is an informational meeting only, no commitment, just an informational meeting only on October 5th at the Community Partners Campus from 5 until 6. And I would invite each of you who might be interested to just hear what it's all about. We will be talking more about the initiative, what it means, the commitment from the partners that might want to do this with us, and then the commitment from the agencies that are involved. So.
Sure. Well, and so often, I think we've talked about on the task force as well, is there are an awful lot of, groups and well-meaning citizens that ask, how can I help? And so I think that's a good place to go and get some information for how they can help. I think if there are a number of organizations that are interested in being a part of Community On Call, that really spreads out the work, and it's, less time and effort for everyone if lots of organizations come forward, but it does then also allow in extreme situations only, and there's a definition of what extreme means. It's not, every day for, weeks and months, but it would allow for the indoor shelter capacity to be exponentially larger than what any of our nonprofits can provide alone. So, I think that's inspiring to see that. I think that if we find that there are some groups that have space, whether it be fellowship halls, or whether it be, in space that is available for that. I think it was the United Way's office agreed that they have the materials that an organization would need for that to facilitate that process, be it cots, blankets, bedding, things like that, that can be easily deployed in a trailer to whatever site it would be needed at, if we had that, super cold or super hot snap where we needed a warming or cooling center larger than what any of us have here. So,
Right.
so yeah, definitely more to come on that. I think that the group is in the process right now of publicizing that event so that people can attend and learn more, right? So, but super inspiring about the 5 individuals that you were able to house. I think that's great forward progress. Does anyone have questions for Tracy about the report or things that she's been seeing? If not, we'll place your report on file also. Thank you for that.
Yep.
With that, that is our last agenda item tonight, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Motion from Henke, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Larson. Members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? No one's ever opposed to adjournment. We'll stand adjourned. Thanks, everyone.